Today we're going to talk about lighting and how you can take a boring and bland scene like this and turn it into a fun, dynamic, and immersive scene like this. Earlier in Unity, it only had support for 3D lights. So even for a 2D game, you would have to use lights for a 3D scene, which made it highly inefficient. Now with Universal Rendering Pipeline, Unity supports 2D lighting, which makes it more efficient. We are going to download and install the URP or Universal Rendering Pipeline in today's video and see how we can set up the scene we saw earlier. Now let's talk about lighting. Lighting plays a fundamental role in creating a realistic and believable visual world. Reflections and illuminations contribute to the overall atmosphere and make the game world feel more natural. It also helps in setting the mood. Different lighting styles and color schemes invokes emotions and create a particular atmosphere. For example, warm and vibrant lighting might create a cheerful and inviting atmosphere, while dark and dim lighting can generate suspense or horror. By manipulating lighting, developers can guide the player's emotions and enhance the narrative experience. By creating visually captivating and cohesive lighting, game developers can engage players on a deeper level. Without wasting any more time, let's go where we left off last time and implement lighting. We're back in the Unity scene. The first thing we want to do is install the Universal Rendering Pipeline. So we'll go to the package manager, search for Universal Rendering Pipeline, make sure that you are in the Unity registry, and we can install the Universal Rendering Pipeline from here. I'm just going to go ahead and click on install and wait for the package to get installed in Unity. It may take a while, and during the installation I got a pop-up that said the editor needed to be restarted. So I went ahead and did that, but after that everything should work completely fine. So we're back with the Universal Rendering Pipeline fully installed in the Unity package. As I mentioned, I had to restart the editor, and yeah, so now we can go ahead and get started with the lighting. The first thing we need to do is create the Universal Rendering Pipeline asset. So I'm going to go ahead in the assets folder, right click, go to create, and inside rendering, and click the URP asset with 2D renderer, because this is a 2D game and we are working with 2D graphics and 2D lights. I'm going to name my asset URP asset. We need to implement this asset at two places. First is at the inside, both of them are inside the project settings. So we can go ahead, go to edit project settings. Inside project settings, we want to go to quality, and inside rendering we can select the URP asset. It will give you a pop-up. Just click on continue. The next place we need to edit is inside graphics. So I'm going to go ahead into graphics, click on the URP asset again, and click on continue. So these are the two places. Now the Universal Rendering Pipeline is fully set up and we can start implementing. Sometimes you need to update the materials, so that's what I'm showing right now. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is update all the sprite materials to react to lighting. So what I'm going to do is open up all the background layers, select them all, and update the materials to sprite lit. I'm going to click on the small eye icon on the top right and type sprite, and the materials should pop up. The first material is the one we want, sprite lit default. So this will make all of our layers react to all the light sources in our project. I also want to update the player sprite so that it does not react to the lights, because we want the player to be of the same color no matter what the lighting is. So I'm going to type in sprite unlit and click on the material, and now both the players and the background layers are ready for the lighting to be implemented. So I'm just going to go ahead and collapse all the layers. I'm going to go ahead into my player game object, right click, and create a new empty game object where I will be storing all the lights inside. I'm going to call it lights so that I know what this game object is for. And inside this game object, I'm going to go ahead, right click, and go to rendering, was it? I think it was, yeah, it was in lights. And the first light I'm going to select is the global light 2D so that the entire scene gets illuminated. I'm going to call it global for the global light. And I'm going to pick a sort of purpley color. So you might see that the light is still not appearing in the scene. That's because we haven't selected the layer. Since this is a global light, the sorting layer should be all, because we want the global light to affect all the layers. I'm going to bring down the intensity to 0.25, and I'm going to change the aspect so that we get a better view. Okay, so this is the player global light. Now we want more lights for the player game object, one for the spotlight so the area around the player gets illuminated, and one more for a point light so near the player gets illuminated. So I'm going to create one more spotlight. I'm going to call it spot. And for this light, what I'm going to do is make it a sort of a teal color, because that's what I want the player aesthetic to be, a sort of teal color. And I'm going to change the values up a little bit. The fall off strength should be 1 so that the light is crisp and smooth as it fades out. The next thing I want to do is change the sorting layers. And yeah, I'll see you guys in a little bit after I've messed around with the values. Okay, so I'm back. All of three lights are ready. The radius for the spotlight I've set to 35, 25, and for the point light I've set to 35. The target layers for the point light are just ground, and for the spotlight are ground and mid ground close. So I'm going to create one more BG light which is going to affect a layer even further back. This is going to have a little bit lower intensity, and it is going to target the mid ground far layer only. So I'm going to bring down the intensity a little bit more so that it just affects the area and not isn't clearly visible. Okay, so all our 4 lights are ready. The player lights are ready, what I mean to say. And now we can go ahead and start illuminating the background with multiple lights so that it gives the effect of dimension and depth. Okay, so we can go ahead and get started with the ground layer. What I'm going to do is inside the ground layer parent game object, I'm going to create a new spotlight 2D, and I'm going to set the positions and the colors of the light so that the mountains or the main mountain or the main hill has a sort of 3D lighting effect, so that only one side of the hill is illuminated and one side is on the dark. And because of the player lights, as the player moves closer to that area, the other side will get illuminated and it will give off a really nice effect. So I want the ground light to be a sort of teal effect. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring down the intensity, or maybe not. I'll keep it at 1. Now the light for the ground layer is ready. But there is a problem. If we go to the scene view, we can see that only the first part of the ground layer is illuminated and the other copy we have isn't. So what we're going to do is duplicate the light, move it to the other ground layer, the child ground layer game object, and we're going to set the transform to the same thing as the original light. So this was for the ground layer. Now I'm going to go ahead and create similar lighting effects for all the layers in the background, and I'll speed up the process so that you won't have to get bored, and I'll see you guys when I'm done. Okay guys, I'm back. I have implemented the lights for all the different layers. The only layer left is the background far layer, and I want to give a more aesthetic appeal to the background far layer because it doesn't really have anything there. So I'm going to create a moon game object. I'm going to add a sprite renderer, and I'm going to search for circle by clicking on the eye icon, and I'm going to change the position to 9 in the X and 11 in the Y, and I'm going to scale it up to something like 5, which I'll do later on. And I will add a spotlight to this moon. And also for the moon to appear, we want to add a sorting group, which will be the layer will be the background far layer. And because we want the moon to be on top of the background layer, I'll set the order to something like 10 or 100, anything. We don't want the moon to be affected by lighting, so I'm going to change the material to sprite unlit, just like we did for the player. And now we can go ahead and start adding lights for the moon. So I'll go to light, I'll add the spotlight 2D, and I want a sort of purpley light for the moon to give off the night effect and go with the dark aesthetic we have going on in this scene. So over here I'm setting the radius for the light. I'm going to set the outer radius to 25, the inner radius to 1. I'm going to choose a sort of purpley color, just like I mentioned earlier. And the fall of strength, as usual, is 1 because it gives a very smooth effect where the higher the fall of strength is. Okay, now the moon is ready. Now what I want is to copy the moon game object and add it to the child background far layer, so that when we scroll through the game, the moon doesn't just suddenly disappear and reappear in the scene. So that is what I'm doing right now. And I think, yeah, that is it. And now our scene is pretty much ready. All we have to do is turn the player lights back on and the player body back on, and we can see what the final result looks like. The final result should look something like this. We can go ahead and play it now, and we can see just how much lighting affects the mood of a game. It looks so much better than previously what it looked like. The lighting affects the different layers. We can see the player light slowly move into the mid ground and ground layers. The hill is slowly lighting up as the player moves close to it. It slowly fades back into a dark color as the player moves away from it. And that is what essentially the feel I wanted from this game when I was developing it way back in December or January. Okay, now just to get a feel for this lighting a bit more, what I'm gonna do is turn off all the lights and then see what the game looks like. Here I'm just turning all the lights back off. The player lights are off. I'm going to open up all the different layers. I'm going to select them and turn back all the lights off, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, now we are back to where we last left off. The game looks very bland. There are no lights. It's just black and white. And this is also testament to how powerful lights can be. All we started off was with a black and white game, and now we have a product so immersive and dynamic. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.